right, moving on to the business that we all came for today. Recently, we have seen a number of actions taken or not taken at the federal government that make us worry about the current and future state of agriculture, our farms and businesses, and our food. And that is what today's subject matter hearing is all about. We will be listening to our agencies and experts. We will be listening to farmers and farm-serving organizations and different industries within agriculture as we try to get an handle of the impact here in the state of Illinois, including what not having a farm bill means for Illinois farms and food. So the USDA funding freeze, the USAID canceled contracts, and mass layoffs at USDA comes at a crucial time when farmers are gearing up for the spring. We are bracing for the impacts of a trade war as some of the biggest consumers of Illinois ag products are Mexico, who is the biggest buyer of Illinois corn, Canada for ethanol, and China for soybeans. There even seems to be an attack on research as the administration terminated the federal government's agreement to fund the Soybean Innovation Lab at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And we also just witnessed the closing of the Peoria Agriculture Lab, and thanks to Senator Durbin for recently calling for it to be reopened. The Peoria Ag Lab was established by the USDA in 1938 and became famous as the place where means to mass produce penicillin were discovered. We also want to hear how federal policies are impacting the availability of farmers and farm workers in Illinois, especially for our dairy and specialty crop growers. We also want to look into how our food access, availability, and affordability will be impacted, the impact to local food infrastructure, and programs that help us eliminate food deserts and help our farmers grow food that will actually feed the people here in Illinois. And let us not even forget the freezing of some of the IRA spending that funded such programs as the Regional Energy for America program, the Conservation Stewardship program, and the Environmental Quality Incentives program, the Regional Conservation Partnerships, and Agricultural Conservation Easement programs, all programs that help farmers today that have been cut. We have so many people to hear from today. I am done talking, and I would like to bring up our first panel. We will be hearing from the Illinois Department of Agriculture, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, the University of Illinois Extension, and the Association of Illinois Soil and Water Conservation Districts. You ready? All right, we'll begin with you, Director Costello. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Gill, also Minority Spokesperson Meyer. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. The last 2 months have created instability in agriculture and agricultural markets like we haven't experienced since most likely the COVID period of operation. The insecurity in the entire economy is being experienced due to broken contractual agreements by the federal government, whether that's the federal government to state governments or country to country. Long-standing agreements are not being honored. Farmers, just like any other business, need and deserve stability. They are businessmen and women making decisions for the next year, the next 3 years, the next 10 years, and honestly, many of them hopefully pass their farms on to the next generation. I want to give you an example of this instability. So when President Trump introduced tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, and then suspended Mexico and Canada tariffs, some of them. There was a 2-day period between a Tuesday and a Thursday. In those 2 days, corn futures dropped 8.6%, soybean futures dropped 5%, literally in 2 days. From a federal funds perspective, federal funds contractually agreed to by the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, have been frozen or cut. The Trump administration has unilaterally cut or withheld funds that Congress has contractually authorized. Here's an example of some of those programs. LFPA, Local Food Purchase Assistance, $43.5 million in that program. About $18 million is still owed to the state of Illinois. Who is that program composed of? 176 farmers or producers. 58% of them have been farming less than 10 years. They meet the definition by USDA of new or beginning farmers. 22% of these producers have been producing less than 3 years. They're exactly the people that we need to work to provide assistance to. I think many people in this room, if not all of you, are aware that the average age of a farmer in the state of Illinois is 58.6 years old. We need younger, the new generation in agriculture. The foods that are being purchased from these producers at market value are being distributed to food insecure communities. And you all should have, hopefully, a handout. If you will look at that handout, there's a chart there. There's 883 communities, food insecure communities, that these foods are being distributed to. They are literally some of the most vulnerable in our state. It serves 85 of 102 counties currently. And again, please look at that pie chart, because a large part of the counties that are served are in southern Illinois, not just northern Illinois. RFSI, our Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure Program, $6.4 million contractually agreed to by the USDA in grants for the middle of the food supply chain. This would be things like cold storage, which is one of the most expensive parts a producer needs to purchase. It's after harvest, before retail sales, when you have to store that food. That's $6.4 million cut. Areas of which there is essentially no federal guidance. We're looking for guidance, asked for guidance. We are having a hard time getting guidance from the federal government. Conservation planners. We took $3.5 million of nutrient loss reduction strategy money, state dollars, to access $9.4 million in federal funds. It's a 3-year program. We hired 40 conservation planners, boots on the ground, that are out helping our farmers with conservation practices. I would also tell you that close to 30 of those individuals have actually gone on and worked now at soil and water conservation districts. They work at NRCS, or they did if they didn't get laid off. They work at Ducks Unlimited, National Wild Turkey Foundation, other conservation organizations. A major concern that I really want to bring to your attention is our meat and poultry inspection. So this is an area, honestly, we're talking about the security of our food supply chain. We are reimbursed at 43% by the federal government for our inspectors. We're supposed to be reimbursed at 50%. It's crept down to 43%, unfortunately. There are 494 processing plants in the state of Illinois. 78 of those we inspect for the federal government. State inspectors go to plants and inspect them for the federal government. 116 we actually inspect that are state plants. The meats stay inside the state. We went to pull our reimbursement for those inspectors' salaries. We're not able to pull it. As a matter of fact, it was just over a month late when we were actually able to pull those monies down. I would also like to talk to you about our iCover program from a conservation aspect. $25 million program that covers 3 states, Indiana, Iowa, and Illinois. Illinois has the lead on this program. $7 million was contractually obligated to the state of Illinois for an autonomous cover crop program. The sign up for this program closes March 15th. I can tell you right now, we cannot get guidance on where funds are at for this program. I'd like to switch over, and I know I'm going rather quickly. I'm trying to get through this because I know you have a lot of people set to testify here. Let's talk about tariffs really quickly. Tariffs do a couple of things. Number one, they shrink export markets because our goods are more expensive to the end user. Secondly, because of retaliatory tariffs, they make imported goods we use from other countries more expensive for our consumers. I can argue that the effects of the Trump agricultural tariffs in 2018 and 2019 are arguably still being felt by agriculture today. And they're a large part of the reason that Brazil and South America had the growth that they had as far as grain production. The tariff directly, especially upon the Chinese and soy production, they found a cheaper producer, and honestly, a lot of the investment into Brazil and South America came from both China and Russia. When we talk about the state of Illinois, Mexico, Canada, and China, they're our three largest trading partners. If you look at what that means to the state, $3 billion in Illinois ag exports go to Mexico. $1.7 billion in corn, $300 million in soy, $53 million in wheat in 2023. If we want to look at Canada, it's about a $2 billion amount that is exported in agricultural goods to Canada. $336 million in bakery goods, cereals, pastas, $124 million in biodiesel. If we want to look at China specifically, Illinois exports close to $1 billion of soybeans. $957 million of soybeans is exported to China of the $1.5 billion overall export that they receive. I think it's also important that we note when you're talking about Mexico, China, and Canada, they account for 48% of our overall agricultural trade in the United States. They account for 47% of our overall agricultural trade in the state of Illinois. So very, very close. Another thing that's important, they're about 20% of the world's population, just those three countries. When we talk about imports, from a cost perspective to farmers, one thing that's important to note from a Canadian perspective, potash, which is a source of potassium, about 80% of it, a little over 80% for the U.S. is imported from Canada. In the state of Illinois, it's about 93% that's imported. So here's something that I'm surprised more people aren't talking about. When we talk about Canada specifically, we as a government, the United States, we import about 52% of rough crude from Canada and about 11% from Mexico. So 63% of our rough crude in the United States is imported from those two countries. About 70% of the refineries in the Midwest blend rough crude with light sweet crude in order to make the gasoline that we all drive on. So if you look at that 63%, if you look at tariffs, prices of gasoline, I would think, have to start creeping up because of these tariffs. There is no faster way to impact consumers than through their wallets in the price of gasoline. I'll end by telling you just a couple of things really quickly. Zippy Duvall, the president of the American Farm Bureau, said this: "We know from experience that farmers and rural communities will bear the brunt of retaliation." Governor Pritzker said this: "This is a slap in the face of Illinois farmers and the communities that they feed." I agree with both of them. And the harsh truth is this: these costs and the rising of these costs will disproportionately affect working class people, the middle class, and the most vulnerable in our state. And that's because it's a larger part of their income. thank you. And after the panel, happy to take any questions. If you would all please look at the handout when you get a chance, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Director Costello. All right, next up, we have Director Natalie Phelps-Finney from the Department of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Chair Harper, Vice Chair Gill, Minority Spokesperson Meyer, and members of the committee for inviting us to be here today to talk about this important subject. IDNR has about $117 million in federal grants that were affected by the White House arbitrary pause on funding. Of those, more than $30 million come to the IDNR from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This funding largely goes to our forestry division for support to local communities and rural landowners for a variety of needs. The pause on federal grants has created chaos for IDNR, absolute chaos, and for our partners and small businesses that they work with. And we're managing our way through the daily chaos, best of our ability, as Director Costello said, with little to no guidance from the White House. But let me be clear, should any of these USDA funds be permanently zeroed out, there will be impacts on Illinois taxpayers, especially those in rural Illinois. At the federal level today, there's a lot of talk about wasteful government spending. Let me tell you about some of the ways this kind of federal funding to IDNR benefits rural Illinoisans. For one, because of USDA funds, IDNR is able to help rural volunteer fire departments get needed equipment and training. That's all I've got in my area. Residents rely on our volunteer fire departments not only to put out house fires, but also to respond to car crashes. Reach hikers who have been injured at Shawnee National Forest. We have people fall from Garden of the Gods all the time. Rescue boaters on the Ohio River or recover a victim of drowning. In 2024, the Illinois Volunteer Fire Assistance Grant Program awarded 30 projects, a total of nearly $213,000 to purchase radios, hoses, turnout gear, PPE, and much more. Number two example, USDA funds allow IDNR to offer tree assessments after severe storms. Our strike team members deployed to communities where tornadoes, derechos, blizzards, and severe storms have hit. They help emergency crews determine which trees are a hazard and must come down immediately and which ones can safely remain. This helps keep people safe and prevents communities from cutting down too many trees unnecessarily. We've seen many of these communities regret this after cleanup is over. Example number three, USDA funds pay for Conservation Reserve Program cost share grants to implement forestry practices on rural land, such as tree planting in streamside zones and other improvements. The USDA relies on IDNR foresters to do field inspections for landowners enrolled in the program. Illinois is the #1 state for CRP enrollments in the Midwest and Northeast. I think that's Region 9. Without this funding, IDNR won't be able to pay our forestry staff to approve farmers' conservation practices, which means farmers won't get their NRCS money. Example number 4, USDA funds pay for tree inventory work in communities throughout Illinois. Tree inventories enable cities to identify every tree in a public right-of-way, its age, species, and condition. The city can then put those trees on a schedule for removal and replanting. They can more responsibly plan their yearly budgets and maintenance schedules. It makes neighborhoods safer. And they can diversify their tree species so that they're less prone to the widespread damage from disease and pests like the emerald ash borer. IDNR currently provides 200 communities across the state with tree inventories, hazard tree assessments, and tree removals, and much more. In fact, we're currently trying to expand this program because it's so popular and there's a demand for it. And last, number 5, specific regard to the Farm Bill, IDNR depends on this law as the primary source of funding for the Illinois Recreational Access Program. We work with rural landowners to make private lands available for hunting and fishing. In exchange, IDNR assists the landowners with habitat management on their land. In FY25, Illinois received just over $2 million in federal funding for this program. For FY26, we're anticipating getting less than $500,000 for it. More than 26,000 acres of private rural land in Illinois are enrolled in the program. So those are just 5 examples of the work that IDNR does in rural communities and elsewhere in Illinois because of the support of the USDA and Farm Bill. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. What we know for sure is that if federal support for programs like these go away, we'll have fewer resources to pump into our rural and underserved Illinois communities that deserve these kinds of services for the taxes they pay. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Finney. Next up, we have the University of Illinois Extension, Associate Dean and Director Shelley Nichols Richardson.
Great. Good afternoon, Chairperson Harper, Vice Chairperson Gill, and Spokesperson Meyer, and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the impact of USDA funding changes on the University of Illinois' Cooperative Extension Service. I'm Shelley Nichols Richardson, Associate Dean in the College of Agricultural, Consumer, and Environmental Sciences, and Director of University of Illinois Extension. I represent 775 employees whose work supports Illinois communities, along with the countless residents who depend on Extension for education, outreach, and research-based solutions. USDA Smith-Lever 3B and 3C funding, known as Extension Capacity Funds, are essential to our mission. Any reduction, freeze, or suspension of these funds would limit our ability to serve youth through 4-H, support county and state fairs, and sustain volunteer-led programs like Master Gardener, Master Naturalist, and Money Mentors. These programs train thousands of volunteers annually, extending vital expertise in agriculture, sustainability, and financial literacy to communities across Illinois. Further, if Title IV funds of the Farm Bill are delayed, reduced, or eliminated, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Education, or SNAP-Ed, will be at risk. SNAP-Ed not only provides nutrition education, but also strengthens local food systems by connecting farmers, grocers, and consumers with resources to promote healthy, affordable food. Illinois Extension relies on USDA funding for 43% of its budget, 19% from Smith-Lever funds, and 23% from SNAP-Ed. A loss of these federal dollars would shift financial responsibility to state and local sources, disrupting service delivery and threatening the longstanding shared funding model that sustains Extension's outreach across all 102 Illinois counties. These funds support educators, coordinators, and program staff who provide critical resources in agriculture, youth development, business, health, and environmental stewardship. Extension initiatives such as Farm Doc and Farm Doc Daily equip farmers with decision-making tools. 4-H clubs and pathway programs develop the next generation of agricultural leaders, and Annie's Project supports women in agriculture through education and mentorship. Programs in urban and rural farming, pesticide safety, farm mental health, and conservation also rely on this federal support. An economic analysis conducted in 2019 demonstrated a 10-to-1 return on investment for Illinois Extension, meaning that for every $1 in USDA funding loss, a $10 gap will be created, leading to about a $133 million impact on the state. Additionally, recent USDA funding freezes have disrupted the cooperative agreements, such as the local food purchase assistance and resilient food system infrastructure programs that Director Costello referred to, which Extension was positioned to implement because of our vast network of food producers, distributors, and community partners. These disruptions negatively impact Illinois farmers, rural economies, and local food systems. We respectfully urge you to support USDA funding to maintain Title IV and Title VII of the Farm Bill. Protecting these funds ensures Illinois Extension can continue to provide essential education, strengthen communities, and support domestic food production that benefits Illinois and beyond. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Association of Illinois Soil and Water Conservation Districts, Executive Director Elliott Clay.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Again, my name is Elliott Clay. I'm the Executive Director for the Association of Illinois Soil and Water Conservation Districts. I'm going to keep this very brief. I did not prepare written remarks for this. I really just wanted to keep it high level to talk about what we've dealt with over the last couple months, what we're seeing in real time, and a little bit about where we may be seeing this going. As many of you know, SWCDs, there's 97 of them in Illinois, covering all of the counties. We work from Chicago all the way down to Cairo. These are people that really are the first point of contact for many farmers when they want to implement new practices or change something about what they're doing. These are folks that have built their careers on agronomy and a number of other ag education backgrounds in order to teach people how they can farm smarter, how they can save money, how they can protect their ecosystems around them, and ultimately benefit from it financially and from a health perspective as well. Over the last couple of months, here's what we've experienced. Before the current administration came in, we had signed an agreement with USDA to bring $4 million into Illinois that essentially would have done a couple of things. One, it would have beefed up our operations and association to be able to provide more resources for the conservation planners that are on the ground. The other bigger thing in my mind was the basically funding to help implement what are called local working groups. That's something that USDA and NRCS have been wanting to do for years. The problem is that there just hasn't been funding for it, even though there's been MOUs signed over the years for this thing. And this was going to be starting. And now we are trying to figure out how do we move forward with this thing that we're legally obligated to do. That is putting us in a bind. We're trying to figure out how to move forward with that. The other side of this that worries me more than anything else, just as some background, Illinois Soil and Water Conservation Districts largely work out of USDA offices within the state, all of which are tied with NRCS. Part of the agreement that Soil and Water Conservation Districts have with USDA is the ability for our employees to be able to use computers. This seems small, but it's incredibly important because those computers have programs that allow us to get GIS data to be able to help farmers figure out where on their properties maybe there's marginalized land that would be better than others, how they could help build out programs and things that could help improve their operations. What we've heard is that the USDA has been told to start inventorying every computer that they have in office. We don't know exactly why. Part of what we've heard is that they're trying to figure out where to put remote workers that they're going to help to go back to work. The other side that we've heard is that they're very much contemplating closing some of these offices depending on capacity that's there right now. I will tell you, if that occurs, it will put SWCDs in an incredibly difficult situation. Those offices and computer systems are what these folks rely on in order to do their job. And, you know, it's hard to talk about unknowns right now. I think there's a lot of people that are scared. A couple of weeks ago, I had a flurry of emails from our employees that had all gotten the now somewhat infamous "tell me 5 things you did last week" email. These are not federal employees. One of the things that we've agreed with NRCS and USDA is the ability to use USDA-issued email addresses in order to access those systems. You have to get basically government permission in order to get into some of this. It's like a clearance sort of in a way lesser sense. And, you know, they're looking at all these cuts and things, and I do worry about where we go from here. I'll just close with this. This is coming at a time where SWCD operations funding was cut $4 million in the state budget last year. I don't want to comment too much on that because I know we're talking about the federal government. That is all just to say that SWCDs are under tremendous pressure already. And we've had a number of different employees reach out that are very worried about the future. It's already hard for us to pay many of these people a living wage as it is. And if we lose even more resources, I'm scared generally for where this could go. So I close with this. I know this is a political hot topic. I don't want to be overly, use this as like a scare tactic or anything like that. I would just appreciate being able to work with members of the committee on both sides of the aisle to figure out how we can move forward in a better way. Some of this is going to require, diversifying our revenue or just thinking outside the box on how we can have SWCDs function better. So to that end, I just want to say thank you to members of the committee for listening. Happy to take questions, and I sincerely want to work with all of you moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from members for our panel? Leader Meyer.
Well, I look out there and I see a lot of friendly faces. And before I start this, I want to state that when I was minority chair under Leader Costello, we always joked that we could do the state budget in this committee in a week's time because this is a non-political committee, which it should stay. Just as it was correctly stated, these funds are suspended. I hear some of them are already released again since prints have been done, and more probably will be. So I don't think we should overreact. I do think that I have to put a few things on the record today, otherwise I'm not doing my job. Let's look at corn prices. The end of December, corn was $4.22. I think it dropped 2 cents today, so it'd be $4.56. That's an increase. Soybeans were $9.40 at the end of December. Soybeans are $10.04, I believe, today. They went down a penny. Wheat was $5.25, and it's $5.40 today, if I got my corrections right. Beef was $1.87 a pound for live beef, $2 a pound for live beef. Hogs were 83 cents a pound. Under the Biden administration, they're 87 cents a pound. So prices have gone up even after the tariff announcements. If you would look back through agricultural papers, agricultural magazines, and you start looking at about July of last year, you would see the forthcoming projections for 2025 to be one of the worst agricultural years, and that possibly up to 20% of the farms could go bankrupt by the end of 2025. These were projections while Trump was not president. You know, I look here and think about the $4 million we worked so hard to get back for soil and water last year. Those were cut by this administration in Illinois. We're talking about issues today that none of us here on this committee can vote on. These are all national issues, so I hope that we look at it respectfully, that we are not grandstanding and turning the Agricultural Committee into a political pawn. I've tried since I was elected to get money for the Kaskaskia River project. This is a project that Director Costello's father earmarked $20 million for the state of Illinois to use to help with stream bank stabilization, getting the water, the nutrients out of the water. We worked with colleges and not-for-profits that all we had to do was raise $2 million to fund to bring in $20 million of federal money that would be used for ag. And with all that, we only needed $300,000 from the state of Illinois. That money has never come to help agriculture.
Thank you, Leader Meyer.
Couple more.
Couple more. Please bring your remarks.
I'll try to make them as quick as I can.
because we got 2 more panels to get through, and we were already set back today.
Okay. December, November, as I fought to get meals for the seniors in Marion County, where was the holdup? It was in the state of Illinois and Department of Aging not getting the comptrollers that. Those people there from the state of Illinois did not receive their senior meals for a couple months. Trump came in and signed a presidential waiver, an executive order, allowing E15 to be used all year long. Huge for the Illinois agricultural industry. He signed that. He's making a difference on these things. The National Corn Growers president is from Illinois. They were very much in support of him signing that. You know, he's brought the money back for our Illinois farmers under Corporate Transparency Act. He's taken them out of that. So, you know, this is a hearing that maybe should be done in 6 months from now to see what's happening, and it shouldn't be being done today. And I ask that we all just take a break before we make too many rash decisions and try to work together for the best of Illinois.
Thank you so much, Leader Meyer. I just want to reiterate the focus of the agriculture hearing and committee has never been political and never will be, but it is evident that the actions taken on the federal level are definitely hurting farms and rural communities in Illinois, and we want to just give that a voice today and just really see what's going on across the state. But thank you so much, and we look forward to, even in the future, coming back to this issue and seeing what the more long-term impact will be. Are there any more questions from members for this panel? Okie dokie. Well, thank you so much. We're going to move on to the second panel. Next up, we're going to hear from farmers, such from the Illinois Stewardship Alliance. We're going to hear from the Illinois Soybean Association. We're going to hear from several farm advocacy organizations and farmers. So I'm looking for Illinois Stewardship Alliance, Illinois Soybean Association, Anna Morrell from the Central Illinois Young Farmer Coalition, and Hella Van Beck from American Farmland Trust. And then we will hear from a couple of testimonies from our farmers. All right, thank you very much. We're going to get started we're going to hear from Ed Dubrick from the Illinois Stewardship Alliance.
Thank you, Chairwoman Harper and members of the Agriculture and Conservation Committee for the opportunity to testify today. I'm hopeful that the comments I provide can give context to the importance of these federal programs in Illinois, and I also hope they can serve as a jumping off point for meaningful discussions amongst stakeholders to find solutions for Illinoisans. I am Edward Dubrick, a first-generation farmer in Iroquois County in the 106th Illinois House District and 2nd Congressional District. My wife Lindsay and I raise livestock, produce, and a family on our small farm. I'm also policy organizer with the Illinois Stewardship Alliance. The Alliance is a farmer-led, eater-powered statewide organization who envisions an Illinois where farmers can earn a living responsibly stewarding their land and feeding our communities. People can find and buy local food that aligns with their values, and we all enjoy vibrant, resilient, and healthy communities. We realize that the status of things are changing every day in DC and remain hopeful that funding resumes promptly. Just last night, I read that LFPA for this fiscal year is set to be resumed. That is welcome news. LFPA 25 funding for the next fiscal year is set to be terminated with notice. This cancellation fails to build off the momentum established and disregards the investments that were made by farmers and food system leaders, anticipating its disbursement in only a few months. Seeds have been started and livestock are growing that were meant to be delivered those funds. We also realize and are thankful that $1 billion of federal funding relief for farmers is expected to be dispersed by USDA this month to Illinoisans. That is a welcome relief for the farmers we represent who farm corn, soybeans, and wheat. However, those funds will do little to address the pressures felt by farmers who grow fruits, vegetables, mushrooms, livestock, and more. Existing federal safety net programs such as ARC, PLC, and crop insurance often do not serve the needs of these farmers, leaving them at greater risk. A new farm bill could better address the needs of these farmers. In some way, the Biden administration created LFPA to build upon the successes and the lessons learned of the first Trump administration's Farmers to Family Food Box program. We are thankful for the time and consideration that IDOA, IDHS, and Extension put into in setting up and administering IL Eats for Illinois. The program had really hit its stride and was making a difference in the lives of both farmers and the nutrition insecure in our state. When long-distance supply chains left grocery store shelves bare during the pandemic, local farmers stepped up and fed Illinois. Since then, a resurgence in sourcing locally and building resiliency has been front of mind for many. Unfortunately, without adequate infrastructure and production, Illinois farmers were unable to sustain that temporary demand once global supply chains resumed. Programs like LFPA allow farmers to reach the scales of production and purchase necessary infrastructure to compete and thrive long-term. RFSI was poised to make an exponential impact on Illinois food systems by offering over $6 million of federal investments into into Illinois that would further close that infrastructure gap. It would throw gas on the fire that LFPA had kept burning. At last check, RFSI is still frozen. Programs like EQIP, CSP, and more through NRCS have been key to farmers adopting practices that are critical to reaching our state's nutrient loss reduction strategy goals. All farmers want to conserve resources, but conservation practices often do not come with the immediate economic return to farms. These programs are essential to bridging that gap for them in the near term. The outcome of the federal funding freeze is out of the hands of many in this room, and we ask that the federal government to resume promised funding and continue to invest in food systems and agricultural conservation. Our ask to this committee is that you support policies in Illinois that build food systems, support emergency food services, and help us reach our NLS goals. My colleagues and I will continue to talk about these state policies that will help us get there, such as local food infrastructure grant program, good food purchasing program, on-farm processing exemptions, farm to food bank, fall covers for spring stavings, restoring soil and water conservation district funding, and more. I'm thankful for the opportunity to speak with you all today, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Ed. We're going to save questions for the end of the panel. Next up, we have Andrew Larson, Director of Government Relations and Strategy from the Illinois Soybean Association.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. I'm so excited. Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee, Leader Meyer. I want to start off and say, we like to start off and say Illinois has one really good thing going for us. We're number one in soybean production in the country. And that's something we always like to remind folks of. But I think Leader Meyer laid out a really compelling story about where traditional row crop agriculture is at. We've been seeing this downtrend for the last few years in corn and soybean production, and we want to make sure that we have policies that support that at the state and federal levels. And that's a dynamic conversation that goes a lot of places. One of the things that makes Illinois specifically unique is one of the challenges we have is we have the highest rate of non-operating landowners of any state in the country. That means there's more farmers having to pay cash rent, having to work with farm managers in those situations, and having that opportunity to enact the conservation programs that many of our other panelists are going to talk about has been a major challenge. And I think that there's opportunities here in Illinois to help keep the family farm together. I know there's been a lot of conversation about estate taxes. That's a conversation that needs to be had about how we continue to help make sure that the family stays in the family farm, and that we continue to make sure that we aren't putting family farms in a position where they're having to break up and sell that farm just to keep it in the next generation. I know we have panelists talking to us about young farmers and other folks too. These issues are really important. And the important thing is they're all connected. The actions we take and the support we give to conservation, the support we give to even working on the state tax policy that helps favor farmers more broadly, the help we give through a farm bill, all of these things help make a difference every day to family farmers across Illinois and keep us being the #1 soybean producing state and allegedly the #2 corn state as well. I know our colleagues aren't here to talk about the corn issue, but we'll give them a good plug too. And I think one of the things that I know we're really thankful as an organization for has been the bipartisan leadership we've gotten even out of this committee. I know Chair Harper and Minority Leader Meyer have both were champions of our biodiesel issue a few years ago, and this General Assembly voted to extend our state sales tax exemption on biodiesel blends at the time over 10%, and we've increased that number. And next April, we'll go to blends of 19% and higher, making us the highest blend here outside of Minnesota and California. We're one of only 3 states in the country that use that high of a blend of biodiesel any time in the year. And that's really something to be proud of. It uses the soybean oil from over 100 million bushels of soybeans that we grow in Illinois every year. So that's a really major market, and it makes sure a huge difference for our bottom line and how we can be effective. One of our major priorities and interests is making sure we protect that market above all costs. It's something that Illinois has. It's a great Illinois story. It's a homegrown fuel we make right here. We use in our largest city, the nation's 3rd largest city, and it's a great product that producers across the state make. And of course, we don't want to lose that. And we know there's a lot of ideas out there, a lot of interest in the renewable fuel space, and having that focus on biodiesel long term. And this on a really great Illinois story, something we've done for over 20 years really well in Illinois. I want to continue that market and make sure we can keep doing the great things in support of it as well. To wrap up, I will say on the Farm Bill issue, one of the things we really want to continue to make sure is we have that access to trade markets. The Farm Bill has programs that help open new markets around the world, and we want to continue. I think all of our ag groups in Illinois want to see a continued funding for the foreign market development and market access programs. That's one way we can directly work to sell U.S. ag products, whether it's corn, soybeans, pork, poultry, and a whole bunch of other things to customers around the world and opening up those new markets, which are incredibly important to us.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Next up, we have Anna Morrell from the Central Illinois Young Farmer Coalition.
Hello, my name is Anna Morrell. I'm the owner of the Little Farm at Weldon Springs in Illinois House District 87 and Congressional District 15. Thank you so much, Chairwoman Harper and the Agriculture and Conservation Committee for taking my testimony today. It's not often that young farmers are given this opportunity. I'm here today not only as a farmer myself, deeply concerned about the impacts the federal funding freeze will have on our local food systems, but also as the newly elected president of the Central Illinois chapter of the National Young Farmers Coalition. The National Young Farmers Coalition is a grassroots organization of about 200,000 farmers and ranchers working to shift power and policy toward equitable and environmentally sustainable resourcing of the next generation of working farmers. Our chapter is centered on supporting emerging farmers, building climate resilience, and advocating for farmer well-being. When news of the federal funding freeze hit, the Young Farmers Coalition began gathering stories from young farmers from across the country. And these stories report that over $5.2 million in approved funds and at least $850,000 in pending reimbursements are locked and multiple programs are stalled. And to be clear, that is just stories gathered from our coalition, not nationwide. So it's a small number for that. Young farmers report being unable to pay their workers, which has led to dozens of layoffs, while critical projects such as irrigation, high tunnels, and solar installations remain unfinished. These programs strengthen our local food systems, help us to build better infrastructure, drive the economy through worker hires, and enable us to become better stewards of the land through conservation practices. And they simply must continue. Programs like IL Eats that aim to make our food systems equitable and just must continue. 21% of Illinois farms participating in IL Eats are BIPOC owned, and 55 of Illinois farms participating are female owned. It's an invaluable program, particularly to young, new, and beginning farmers, as well as farmers from socially disadvantaged groups. Farmers face so many challenges as it is, and now they must contend with the uncertainty of whether or not these contracts with the government will be honored. We need certainty, and we need certainty so we can continue feeding our communities. I would really like to see funds for LFPA and RFSI programs honored and extended through 2026, and I thank the committee so much for their time.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Helen Van Beck from American Farmland Trust, who is the Midwest Program Manager.
Chairperson Harper, Vice Chair Gill, and Spokesperson Meyer, as well as members of the committee, thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Helen Van Beck, and I represent American Farmland Trust, an organization committed to protecting farmland, promoting sound farming practices, and providing technical assistance to farmers here in Illinois. For decades, federal conservation programs have been the backbone of efforts to improve soil health, protect water quality, and strengthen farm resilience. Just last year, the USDA committed $3.1 billion to the Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities initiative, with $844 million supporting 22 projects that would be available to Illinois farmers. The Inflation Reduction Act also allocated $19.5 billion over 5 years to conservation programs like EQIP, CRP, and RCPP, programs that provide critical support to farmers who are trying to responsibly manage their land while running a profitable farming operation. But today, those promises are on hold. Across Illinois, farmers who spent months applying for these programs, some even investing their own capital in cost-share agreements, are now left in limbo. The freeze hasn't just paused funding, but it has also eroded trust in the programs designed to help farmers succeed. This is especially troubling when USDA data shows that 58% of EQIP and CSP applications already go unfunded in Illinois. Organizations like AFT, as well as our partners and NRCS staff, who provide technical assistance to all types of farmers across the state, are now unable to move forward with planned farmer support initiatives. For AFT in Illinois, this includes our Farmers Leading the Advancement of Soil Health, or FLASH groups, which is a $4 million RCPP project that would launch farmer-led learning groups with financial resources for on-farm implementation of conservation practices based on a very successful model that receives state funding in Wisconsin. The Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities program, AFT is a leading member on a Trutera-led technical support program that would help over 7,000 farmers adopt climate smart practices on more than 7 million acres across the US, including in Illinois, as well as the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, or ASEP-AL, which is a partnership that AFT has with NRCS to leverage funding to protect, restore, and enhance Illinois working farms and ranches, specifically in the Chicagoland region for our partnership. The bottom line is that consistency and relationships matter, and the sudden halt in funding is not just disrupting projects, it's disabling farm businesses, conservation progress, and Illinois' ability to meet its climate and water quality goals while retaining our robust and diverse agricultural industry. I urge all of you as our state leaders to amplify the voices of the farmers you hear from today by calling on USDA to lift the funding freeze and commit continued support to the programs mentioned today. I urge the committee to consider these impacts when making decisions about Illinois agriculture and conservation policy going forward. Thank you so much for your time, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from members for this panel? With no questions, I want to thank you guys so much for giving us this very important information. Next up, we are going to hear from a number of Illinois farmers. At this time, I'd like to call Natalie Ward, Harold Wilkin, Rachel Smedberg, Michael Howard, and Mitch Cave. All right, we're going to start with Miss Natalie Ward. Please proceed.
Pardon me. Good afternoon, and my thanks to the committee for providing this opportunity for me to address you. My name is Natalie Ward, and I am the Aggregation and Distribution Warehouse Manager for Down at the Farms, which is located in the Fairbury community in Livingston County. Down at the Farms represents a nonpartisan collaboration of about 120 farmers who, for the last 20 years, have worked together to support each other through crop planning, marketing, aggregating, and distributing local food into many communities across the state. Last year, we delivered just short of 1 million pounds of local food. Our business and our farmers are being dramatically impacted by the uncertainty of these federal cuts to vital agriculture programs. Not only the pause in funding to the LFPA and Illinois Eats program, but other programs as well, such as the RFSI grant, value-added grants, EQIP grant, and the specialty crop distribution and research grants. Today, I would mostly like to focus on the LFPA program. This program has allowed our farmers an opportunity to provide significant amounts of foods to families in need. See the printed handouts that have been distributed. It has fostered pride in our farmers who feel they are truly making a difference in these families' lives. Down at the Farms worked for nearly a year ahead in anticipation of this original grant to establish satellite hubs on a number of our existing farms. This intense innovation has allowed us a collaboration to build out distribution models that focus on individual communities that do not have easy access to healthy food or even grocery stores. This replicable model has huge long-term implications for numerous communities throughout the state and the future of our local food system. The program has enabled farmers to receive payment for their products that are at a price that values their work. We have used this program to help beginning farmers scale up their production and build some resilience in their businesses. But here we are, today is March 11th, our farmers now have products that are on hold. We are starting crops, we have meat and dairy that are being produced for this program, and we are now unable to move it to families and food banks. There's a feeling of frustration, anger, disappointment, and yet hope. Hope that you in this room, all of us in this room, can with urgency make a difference and find a way to restore and sustain these vital agriculture programs. Do we truly place value on good and healthy food? Do we place value on the producers that grow that food? Do we value thriving local communities? And do we value bringing the next generation of farmers to the table? Because of my work with Down at the Farms, I have an increased awareness of just how important all of these values are. I know each of our farmers, their products, and their passion and intense desire to contribute to the greater good of communities. My ask is that you as our representatives do everything within your power and responsibility to restore and work to make permanent funding to all of these programs. We as Down at the Farms, along with all our farmer network and indeed farmers across the state, are committed to doing the long-term work to building an amazing local food system. We just ask for your leadership and support for that work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to hear from Mr. Harold Wilkin.
Hi, my name is Harold Wilkin. I am the owner of Janie's Mill and Janie's Farm, located at Ashcombe, Illinois, in the 106th District. Thank you, Chairwoman Harper, for taking my testimony today. As I am here today to share the positive effects of the Illinois Eats program and the effects it was having on the farmers, food processors, and the consumers in Illinois, especially people living in what is known as food deserts in rural Illinois, where small communities can no longer support a viable grocery store. Our farm, Janie's Farm Organics, raises corn, soybeans, and 6 different types of wheat and rye, and our mill stone grinds and flakes the grains into flour and rolled grains. We also work with 7 other farmers that provide grain to the mill. Through the Illinois Eats program, we provide cornmeal, all-purpose flour, and flaked oats to underserved families. We work with food hubs from DeKalb to St. Louis to provide great quality food. Not only does our mill create products that are healthy and nutritious, but it also is an economic driver for our community of 800 people. Between the farm and the mill, we employ 40 people, along with my son, my nephew, and I. Illinois Eats allowed us to add 2 full-time employees and 1 part-time position to fulfill these orders. Illinois Eats was the epitome of what our mission as farmers is supposed to be. We are and should be who feeds our neighbors. 10 months ago, we signed an agreement to provide food for this program. We, like so many other farmers providers, ramped up our businesses to meet the demand, overcome the challenges, and incurred costs such as seed, packaging, labels, added equipment, counting on the program to last at least through the end of the fiscal year and maybe even into 2026. I would truly like to see some way that farmers could be made whole by looking at ways to at least fund the program through the end of the contract. thank you for your time. And as a farmer who feeds consumers, I really appreciate being here today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming. Next up, we're going to hear from Rachel Smedberg.
Hello. Thank you, Chairwoman Harper, for having me today, and to this committee for having me. I'm here alongside with my 2 young children and my husband, and I'm just so thankful to be here. So I'm Rachel Smedberg, and I'm the owner of Tulip Tree Gardens in Beecher, Illinois, within House District 29. I'm a farmer, a food aggregator, a business owner, a mother, and a wife. My journey is shaped by passion and purpose, and I'm here to testify on the remarkable impact of LFPA and the LFIG grant, an experience that has profoundly transformed my life, my family's lives, and the lives of those in my community. I am a first-generation farmer. I entered this field without the advantage of a family legacy or generational expertise. We viewed this opportunity as a chance to redefine our relationship with the land and our obligations to our community. We forged our own path, cultivating not just crops, but a vibrant community that stands outside the conventional agriculture framework. After 6 years filled with invaluable lessons and considerable challenges, we were fortunate enough to secure the LFIG grant. This grant has become a pivotal asset, allowing us to purchase a refrigerated truck, an essential piece of infrastructure that empowered not only us, but our network of farmers. This network of farmers to transition from selling at farmers markets and small grocers to reaching larger wholesale and institutional buyers. As we move forward, the benefits of the LFIG grant multiplied throughout the year. As a newly emerged player in the local foods landscape, we found ourselves strategically positioned to become aggregators and distributors for local food for the LFPA, programs. This initiative acted as a catalyst for an unprecedented local food movement across Illinois. What unfolded was truly transformative. By bridging the gap between farmers and food recipients, we began to heal in ways we have never anticipated. We turned the traditional narrative of local nutrient-dense foods on its head. What was once reserved for affluent farmers market is now accessible. You can find our pasture-raised pork and our friends at Wanda's Farms pasture-raised chicken within food banks and food programs throughout Illinois. It's crucial that we recognize the generational impact this program has made. In homes receiving these food boxes filled with fresh herbs, local honey, and vibrant salad greens, many families are experiencing wholesome, nutrient-dense food for the very first time. Imagine that. Many children are consuming nutrient-dense food for the very first time in their lives. Just let that resonate for a moment. Without LFPA, here's what goes missing from just our corner of the market. Farmers lose out on already invested infrastructure and are forced to make up for the losses. What was a net benefit for farmers has now appeared to drive farmers further into debt and to struggle. Many specialty crop growers and ranchers have lost confidence. We don't feel supported because we're not supported. This is the next generation, the generation that will address the mistakes of the past and face the new challenges ahead. Together, let's commit to restoring the health and wellness of our communities. Let's transform the food pyramid of subsidized offerings and prioritize investments in our children's future. The time is now, and together we can make a lasting difference. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we're going to hear from Mr. Michael Howard.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank Chairman Harper and the committee for this opportunity to be here today. My name is Michael Howard. I'm the CEO of Fuller Park Community Development, Eden Place Farms. I am an urban farmer, something that is a new animal on the block, I know, but I've been coming to Springfield for over 15 years, praising the fact that urban farmers are much needed, especially in urban areas where we have large concentrations of populations. I live and work in Chicago's 6th Illinois District, and I'm in the 7th Congressional District. As the CEO of Fuller Park Community Development, a 33-year-old not-for-profit organization, we have faced ongoing challenges in securing funding to support our community programs that serve our families and our stakeholders. In 2024, we were proud to receive the funding from the USDA for our urban farm, which exists to provide fresh produce to a community that has lacked a grocery store for over 4 decades. Now, I just want you to hear that now. Our community has not had a grocery store in operation for over 40 years. With the new partnerships with the state of Illinois, LFPA, and Illinois Eats, and the U.S. forestry grants that we anticipated for 2025, we secured significant funding enough to establish a food forest that would offer fresh fruit to our local residents. The funding also allowed us to expand our modest urban farm, enabling us to serve over 1,500 families and seniors with fresh vegetables. Additionally, we drafted plans to hire 3 additional full staff members to meet the expected demand for produce from our farm and our new fruit forest that we were establishing this year. And we also are hoping to install a new roof on our 13,000 square foot facility, which houses our aggregation center, our classrooms that train new farmers for tomorrow's future. And so basically, regretfully, an executive order out of Washington, D.C. Caused the canceling of all of the funding for not only us, but farmers nationwide and not-for-profits like ourselves that have strived for over 3 decades to provide and bring resources into our community, which is lacking of so many resources that I dare not to go into them today. Ours has severely impacted, this problem has severely impacted our programming, our planning, and our community, because this decision only dampens our spirit, but significantly hinders our efforts to improve the lives of the residents and the families of Fuller Park and the surrounding communities. This loss of funding has an impact on real families who live way too much with lack of access to quality in every way. My people, before we established our urban farm, shops every day at filling stations. That's where they get their groceries. And I don't know if you know anything about processed food. It is not good for you, okay? Earlier you heard about rich and dense food. That's what we're now offering the families and children that live in our communities. What we lost, our first chance at a local fresh produce store in our neighborhood in over 40 years. We also lost our first local food forest in a community that shops at gas stations to feed their families. We also lost the opportunity to change the lives and the health of 3 head of households who look forward to working this year under the funding we thought we had. Another opportunity we lost was to improve the quality of life for over 1,500 local families on Chicago's South Side. And we also lost the opportunity to secure our most valuable asset, our learning center, our aggregation center, and our programs for our community with a new roof. Try working every day under an umbrella. It's not a good thing. It hurts. It hurts a lot. But I just want to say that I would like to see the freeze lifted on Illinois East and the LFPA program and the RFSI program. And I would like to see this committee do all that it can to encourage more urban farmers in our large populated cities in Illinois, not just Chicago, but all around Illinois, because basically most of us are specialty crops farmers, and everybody got to eat. You may not be a specialty crop farmer, but you gotta eat some specialty crops to stay healthy. And so I encourage this committee to continue to do the great work that you've been doing. And if we can help you in any way in our neighborhood, help you do your job better, we look forward to the opportunity to serve you as you serve us. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so very much. Are there any questions from members for this panel? Leader Meyer.
First off, I'm glad seeing you all here to see some of the programs that we helped create in the state of Illinois, starting back with the cottage bills and the simple little cupcake bill and how it moves forward and it changes the state. And I realize the food deserts in the state of Illinois and have worked with Representative Harper on seeing what we can do on these bills. You know, I just want to point out that this committee can't change anything that's going on in Washington, D.C. These are freezes right now. They're not done away with. And as you look at some of the issues, when you talk about dairy, I can tell you what it's like to milk 29 cows by hand when we don't have electric because of a tornado. I realize these things, but I also realize that any dairy product going into Canada has a 250% tariff put on that product going from the United States into Canada, which isn't right either. So things are working out. We will try to do what we can. Keep doing what you can for your communities. The idea, and seeing the kids back there at their signs are wonderful, because every kid should have a chance to grow up on a farm. That's a life that most people will never realize. And the playing in the dirt, and then to watch what you plant grow and be able to eat it later. So thank you for coming today.
All right, thank you very much. Representative Rosenthal, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, the last farm bill was signed in 2018. I'd like to remind everybody that by President Trump. And so I would encourage you all to contact your congressmen and congresswomen and to get because the next farm bill will be signed by President Trump, most likely in 2025. So if you want to get all your programs in there and get his support, you need to contact the congressmen and the people that are on the Ag Committee there. Like Charlie said, there's not a lot of things we can change here from DC. So I would encourage you to talk to them.
All right. I am sorry. Next up, we have Mitch Cave.
Good afternoon. My name is Mitchell Lee Cave, owner of Four Lees Farm, located in Virginia, Illinois, which is Cass County, House District 99. Thank you, Chairwoman Harper, and for the Agricultural and Conservation Committee for taking my testimony today. I've been involved with Illinois Eats program since last year, supplying proteins and vegetables to the Central Illinois Food Bank located here in Springfield. The program has a very positive impact on our small farm financially, as well as adding stability to the food system. We appreciate that my products can be enjoyed locally by community members who otherwise might not have access to quality local meat and produce. By choosing local, the Illinois Eats program is reducing food miles, supporting sustainable practices, and nurturing the environment. We appreciate that it's not just selling meat and produce. We are playing a part in a building of a stronger, more inclusive food system. Our small farm isn't just a business, it's a vital part of our community. And we feel the joy of knowing that our efforts are making a difference, enriching lives closer to home. During this program, we've been able to nearly double our production with zero waste, which has never been achieved before for 2024. If this program by chance is extended, we will be able to hire an employee, increase our production once again for 2025 and beyond, creating a more stable business model and helping out our community that we live in. The disruption to our existing contract impacted my operation greatly from the funding freeze. We received a call from our local food bank that they were not able to accept our 2 deliveries the following week, and that the program was on hold, which that in turn just put me into crisis mode. We now had to pay our processors rent for our pork and our chicken because we had no place for it to go. Our freezers at home were full. I had planned to participate in the program all year. Seeds were started, livestock's growing, processing dates for the year were made with the intent to fulfill our contract and our obligation. I would simply like to encourage the lawmakers at state and federal levels to invest in local food programs like the LFPA, the LFS program, because of the tremendous impact it truly has made to our farm and to our local community. And with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you to this panel. We're going to bring up the next panel. And I really want to thank folks, especially the voices of our small farmers and our local food producers, to be here today to talk about their impacts. I want to thank the voices that are here today. So the next who are going to be coming up is going to be Leslie Cooper Band, Jody Osmond, Benjamin Stumpf, and Erica Allen. And some of them are on Zoom, and we're trying to speed our committee along. I'm so sorry we got off to a unplanned late start today. So we're going to ask that folks keep their remarks and try to scale it down to 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. Very quickly, I want to thank the voices that are here today, but also recognize those who are not here, who we cannot hear from today, like the Farm Bureau, the Corn Growers Association, the Beef Association, and Illinois Pork Producers. Some of them first told us that they would be here, and then at the last minute could not make it. So perhaps we will be able to hear from them at our next subject matter hearing. Another one of the reasons that we are having this hearing, though, is that I have noticed a silence on issues that matter most to farmers in the state of Illinois under these new very scary changes. I'm just wondering if these same voices would still be silent if we saw these same changes take place prior to January. You never know. But I have been told by some of my farmer friends and some of those voices that are not here today is that they are not here because they are afraid of retaliation from the federal government. So I just wanted to get that on the record and say we do look forward to revisiting this conversation in the future. But without further ado, I would love to kick things off to Leslie Cooper Band.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Harper and the Agriculture and Conservation Committee for taking my testimony today. My husband, Wes Gerald, and I founded and operated Illinois' first farmstead creamery, Prairie Fruits Farm and Creamery, for 20 years. We sold our farm to beginning farmers last year. We farm because we are committed to raising healthy and delicious foods sustainably and regeneratively. We believe deeply that agriculture can work with nature and build community. I'm here today to express deep concerns about the future of the Illinois Eats program and the USDA Agriculture Conservation Program. The new owners of Prairie Fruits Farm and Creamery told me that the Illinois Eats program, in their working with Down at the Farms, provided 20% of its wholesale cheese income last year. This consistent revenue stream allowed them to weather the financial risks and transitions of being new dairy farmers. Moreover, the Illinois Eats program allowed financially disadvantaged consumers to access our award-winning cheese, along with amazing locally produced meats, eggs, and produce. The disruption to existing contracts has created risk and uncertainty for the farm's market outlets for cheese this year and beyond. For USDA to cancel this program, it is my understanding that they will honor the program up through this current fiscal year, but not beyond, and that they say that it no longer aligns with its goals, is deeply concerning and short-sighted. I'd also like to express my concerns about the possible loss of funding for conservation programs such as cost share for habitat restoration and renewable energy. My husband and I own a 46-acre farm that is adjacent to Prairie Fruits Farm and Creamery. We raise hay and pasture for livestock. We're planning a major habitat restoration project on our farm this year to establish native prairie, wetlands, and invasive species removal. As of March 4th, according to the National Weather Service, approximately 54% of the state of Illinois is under drought conditions, and 21% is abnormally dry. And we are talking about spring, March. Normally, we are underwater here this time of year. Our plans will help our land and our watershed be more resilient to extreme weather. It will also provide a refuge for wildlife, particularly migratory waterfowl and nesting grassland birds, both of which have experienced precipitous population declines in recent years, primarily due to habitat loss. We're also exploring an agrivoltaics project with a solar company. Our plan is to graze livestock under the solar panels. If federal funding for renewable energy projects is cut, we will not be able to undertake this project. In closing, I would like to see funding renewed for Illinois Eats LFPA, and I would like USDA to continue to fund agriculture conservation and renewable energy programs. Thank you for hearing me out today.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Next up, we're going to hear from Jody Osmond.
There we go. Sorry about that. My name is Jody Osmond. I'm a farmer. I have been full-time for that over 20 years. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Madam Chairwoman Harper, good to see you again. Vice Chair, the rest of the committee. Over the 23 years that I've been farming, USDA has been a reliable partner providing technical assistance for conservation programs, converting row crop acreage to permanent pastures, grazing specialists. Also, I've taken advantage of the United States USDA Sustainable Ag Research and Development Program, an education program with a grant that allowed our CSA to go from $50,000 a year in sales to $175,000 in sales in 1 year. And I'm here today not only to support things like NRCS funding and the Illinois Eats, but also the USDA as a whole in the Farm Bill, because more as these funding freezes create chaos and uncertainty and economic impact on farmers and eaters, and taking away conservation funding will cause more erosion of our soils, our most valuable resource that Illinois has. that's a huge concern, but an even bigger concern of mine is the erosion of trust. When hardworking farmers sign contracts with Uncle Sam and our government does not honor those, who can we trust? And that's the message all of you need to help us take to our Ag Committee members from the 14th District, where I'm from, in Ottawa, Illinois, but also Eric Sorensen's district, Mary Miller's district, Boss district. This must stop, and we must have a USDA that we can trust. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we're going to have Benjamin Stumpf.
Thank you, Chairman Harper and the Agriculture and Conservation Committee for taking my testimony today. Good afternoon. My name is Ben Stumpf, and I own and operate Rumble and Ernie Farm in Monroe County, located in the 12th Illinois Congressional District. We are a young vegetable farm heading into our 5th year of production. First, I'd like to say that I'm proud to be an Illinois citizen, and I'm honored to have the privilege of being a good land steward to our state's deep, dark, and fertile soil, some of the best on our continent. Over the last 9 months of participating in the Illinois Eats program, our farm provided produce to over 300 of our region's most vulnerable families. The funds received from the LFPA have drastically improved my family's quality of life, helped address food insecurity in my community, and put our farm's overall trajectory on a positive path. The momentum we built in 2024 has abruptly come to an end to the USDA funding freeze. This freeze couldn't have come at a worse time when ground needs to be worked, seeds need to be sown, inputs are high, and funds are low. The first major impact Illinois Eats had on me was to give me the financial ability to quit my second job. It's a sad fact, but many farmers across the United States have to work a second job to offset living costs and small farm improvements. Illinois Eats and LFPA funding allowed me to focus on being a farmer full-time. I no longer had to wake up at 3 in the morning for my shift at UPS, followed by a long day of farming, which was becoming unsustainable for me and my family. Illinois Eats' ability to connect and distribute large amounts of produce allowed me to spend more time in the field growing food and less time trying to figure out where it should all go. I knew that 100% of what I grew would end up on someone's plate and that I would be compensated fairly. Last summer, Illinois Eats was there when our farm needed it most. There were multiple Saturdays when bad weather forced our farmers markets to cancel, and I had peace of mind knowing that Illinois Eats would act as a sort of crop insurance policy and purchase whatever didn't sell. In years past, this wasted produce would typically end up on our compost pile instead of someone's plate. This past winter, LFPA funding helped sustain the farm when markets closed. During this time of year, I usually find myself trying to patch together a series of low-paying jobs to get my family financially through until spring. We packed our greenhouse full of cold-hardy crops because we knew we had a secure, reliable place to sell. This extra winter income allowed me to hire my first employee and create a job in my community. I thought the days of hooking up tractor implements or moving irrigation lines myself were over. The USDA funding freeze reduced our farm's capacity to hire our first employee. What was on track to become a full-time position is now down to 1 day. Vegetable farming is hard, and it's even harder to do alone. This has stunted our farm's growth. And finally, running a farm is never static. Restaurants close, severe weather events often occur, and pandemics have the ability to shut down supply chains. A lot of the challenges we face as farmers are out of our control. It was comforting to know that up until this point, our farm had full support from the USDA on multiple fronts to help improve our ability to provide food to our community. I hope that my testimony today demonstrates just how critical it is for my family, community, and farm that the USDA unfreezes LFPA funding and prioritizes the program in fiscal year 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Next, we're going to hear from Erica Allen.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to address the committee. And thank you, of course, Chair Harper. We operate in Illinois Senate Districts 5, 13, 15, and 16, and also in Illinois Representative Districts 10, 25, 26, 29, and 31. My name is Erica Ray Allen. I'm a founding CEO for the Urban Growers Collective, headed here in Chicago. I am from a multi-generational small family farm lineage here in the Midwest, Wisconsin, and also here in the Chicagoland area. I found out during the pandemic as well, and also hailing from the southeast of the U.S., operating both in the rural and urban scales of operations. So I really like to couch the work that I've been fortunate to lead as community-based agriculture, really removing this very false divide between our rural and urban communities, because we all eat. And, within that context, our approach really, trains as an organization, trains and educates the next generation of farmers and growers and food systems innovators to really think about stimulating our local economies through the food system to create measurable public health improvements. We're rooted in growing food, and our mission is really to cultivate nourishing environments where that everybody's health is supported, that we have flourishing economic development, that we have places where people can heal and support one another, that there's creativity and joy. Those are some of the facets of what we call urban agriculture, this really hard to understand activity, which really could be anywhere, especially within rural spaces where we also have food insecurity. We've really aimed to address this with a lot of the historic inequities that farmers are always working to alleviate, are some of the most generous and forward-thinking people within our country historically and continue to be. And we've really, stepped up. We stepped up during the pandemic to grow more food, to feed our communities, to really, improve and work together throughout our state and throughout our region to make sure everybody, especially our most vulnerable community members, were able to, to secure our health. So just, in the context of what we're able to do here in our state, and to understand that the suspension and the delays of these agricultural payments, the grants and the supports really disproportionately impact small growers, the emerging small farmers, the ranchers, the producers, who are already operating on a very, very, very narrow margins and need additional supports to deliver much needed food access and nutrition services to our hungry community members, who are also in need of nutritionally dense foods to preserve and support public health, which from a conservative perspective is very cost intensive if we're not meeting folks where they're at and making sure that everybody across our state has access to these nutritionally dense foods that we can grow easily at such a comparatively small price. So these programs are dynamic. They provide low-cost financial supports that impact the entire state and region. They make us more food secure and stimulate our economy. We have folks moving back to small towns that are in need of more population, that are, young people, young families that are excited to return to agriculture, especially after the 80s decline. Just so much interest and excitement. And to have a program like Illinois Eats that's supported by the federal LFPA, with promises. We knew the program was temporary. We've all been advocating for it to become permanent because it's the first time historically in recent years, maybe there was something back in the day, that supports specialty crops, food that people eat directly, has been so beneficial that, our organization, for instance, was able to increase our food production by 20% last season, which is huge. We've also been able to grow 15,000 additional seedlings, which now we're going to have to figure out what other markets we can find. And as a not-for-profit, that's really challenging. We increased our staffing, looking towards expanded opportunities. And as other people have said, this is really challenging for a time when we know that we need to be more regionally focused. We need to not be relying on, importing our food when we can feed ourselves in some of the richest soil in the world. We should be growing as much of our food locally for our local population. So it's just really baffling that we're in this position. We also know that these programs mean that more families are able to just eat fresh food, and that's something that that we are more than capable of providing, and that you all have the opportunity, I think, to support this program and figure out and advocate with folks in Washington that we can do this together. I have served under multiple administrations. I'm politically agnostic, because I believe that everybody eats, and that this should not be a political or weaponized issue. It's really important for our nation's security that we have local food security, especially because we do have, as Leslie shared, we have some serious climate change issues, and we are, we're part of the breadbasket. And I'm concerned about the cost of food. I'm concerned about the communities that are already food insecure and have challenges with rising food costs, that our collective future is challenged, and how we are going to continue to, to expand with all the work and all the investment that has happened over recent years, all the advocacy, all of the, across the aisle understanding that when it comes down to what we want everybody to have good food, we want to see our farmers, of all scales flourish, that it's good for everybody, it's good for the economy, and that this is something that we've historically all been able to agree upon. And I am confident that we'll be able to work together to shift the tides. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Erica, and thank you to all of the farmers on this panel for speaking today. We're going to quickly move into our final panel, and I do apologize. We have about run out of time, but I want to be respectful to those who have come and say that you have 90 seconds to get out the top 3 impacts to your work, to your farmer organization. And so I would like to welcome the final panel, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign College of ACES, Professor Jonathan Koppes, Roger Cooley from the Chicago Food Policy Action Council, Heather Edwards from Rooted for Good, Cindy Techmeyer from Joe Davies Local Food, Jackie DiBautista from Farmers Rising, Skylar Larimore from Greater Chicago Food Pantry, and Kelly Daly from the Eastern Illinois Food Bank all come to give us their take on the impacts to our food access. All righty, I heard that they moved the next committee who was supposed to be in here, so I'm not that much on a time crunch, but now we're over our committee time. But thank you to those who have come here today. You have more than 90 seconds now, so please proceed. We're going to start off with Professor Jonathan Koppes from the University of Illinois College of ACES. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair and members of this committee. I appreciate the chance to chat with you a bit today, and I know you've heard an enormous amount of important testimony and a lot of things to talk about. So I'm going to be brief and try to summarize my thoughts a little bit, which I think maybe helps also summarize a lot of what you've heard. So I'm Jonathan Koppes. My focus at the University of Illinois is really on federal policy, so the Farm Bill that's come up a few times and is a tough road to pay attention to these days. But I'll put a couple quick thoughts. So I summarize in basically 3 words: headlines, top lines, and timelines. There's my testimony. So under the big headlines, all the news that we're seeing are a lot of complexity, a lot of challenges you see. So if you lose some parts of markets here, it has a whole lot of complex consequences down the road that really are challenging for policy. On the top line, what we're seeing a lot in DC and real challenges in the DC conversation are the big numbers, billions of dollars to cut here, billions of dollars to cut there. And we're missing a lot of the real challenges on the ground and what those cuts mean. Everything from food assistance to farm assistance and how that can really play out. And I also think within that, the idea that, some of these numbers look really big, but what smaller operations, how they get hit and how it hits them first. So, a haircut to a multinational corporation is an absolute devastation to a small operation or a new operation. And finally, the timeline. What we're seeing from tariffs and other challenges that we have here are going to carry out for quite some time. And I think that is one of the big challenges our policies are going to face. I'm concerned that given what we're looking at in Congress, particularly around the reconciliation effort, I don't think there's a lot of optimism for a farm bill. So hopefully that was a brief summation of things. Again, I appreciate any questions you all have and happy to try to make sense of what we see. But I appreciate the time to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we will hear from Roger Cooley.
Thank you, Representative Harper and the Illinois House Agriculture Committee for holding this important hearing and the opportunity to testify today. I'm Roger Cooley, the Executive Director of the Chicago Food Policy Action Council. We've been incredibly proud to partner on the nearly $30 million Illinois Eats program, Illinois' implementation of the USDA food purchasing agreement. As we've heard a lot today, an innovative collaboration of the Department of Agriculture, Human Services with the University of Illinois Extension, and a diverse coalition of partners across the food supply chain, farmers, food banks, wholesalers, community pantries, farmers markets, mutual aid nutrition programs. Illinois Eats is unquestionably delivering quality Illinois-grown food to all corners of the state by 883 unique community partners working with 15 lead agencies across 87 counties. A diverse network of smaller, newer growers is benefiting from previously unavailable opportunities. As we've heard, many of these growers are beginning producers, and this is a huge opportunity in Illinois where the average farmer is over 58 years old. In the fall of 2024, 9 members of the U.S. House delegation and Senator Richard Durman all advocated for the extension of LFPA. This extension, known as LFPA 25, was announced on October 1st, a $1 billion extension of LFPA, including support for local food for schools. Despite all of the documented benefits of LFPA, yesterday the administration unilaterally canceled all signed and agreed to LFPA 25 agreements with states, putting Illinois Eats progress at risk. As you have heard and will hear today, this action is putting the economic future of many farmers, producers, and distributors in severe danger. As a colleague from University of Illinois said, this is hugely much more impactful for smaller producers than it is for the large major corporations. We ask the Illinois members of Congress to once again step up and demand that the USDA and Secretary Rollins renew their support for LFPA 25. They are also encouraged to act as part of the next overdue farm bill to include funding to conclude and fund the Expanding Access to Local Food Acts, making LFPA a permanent USDA program. We also encourage Illinois' leaders to be creative and active in pursuing alternative supports for Illinois Eat goals. Several bills this legislative term fund grant programs supporting local food infrastructure and food banks, direct local food procurement by state institutions, expand local food retail, and invest in healthy, productive soils. The Illinois Treasurer should also explore financial tools building off the successful Ag Invest program and the U.S. Commodity Credit Corporation that currently supports Illinois Eats, with or without a supportive federal administration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Roger. All right, who we have next? Next up, we have Heather Edwards. She's not here? Okay. Well, are we going to go on to Cindy Tegmeyer?
Hi again. Hello, Chairperson Harper, Vice Chairperson Gill, Republican Spokesperson Mr. Meyer, and the members of the House Agriculture and Conservation Committee. Thank you for staying till panel 3. From the USDA website this year, it says, food security means access by all people at all times to enough food for an active, healthy life. My name is Cindy Tegmeyer, and I'm a constituent from the beautiful Joe Daviess County in Northwest Illinois. We're one of the 2 hilly parts, down south and up by us. We border Iowa and Wisconsin. I am an Illinois Eats Farm to Food Pantry Coordinator for Joe Davies Local Foods, referred to commonly as JDLF. JDLF is a food hub that connects local farmers to consumers. We have been a lead agency in the Illinois Eats program since its inception of March of 2024. I have a handout that you should all have that has some of the facts and figures, so you can look at that later. Our program was able to expand from Joe Davies County to include Carroll and Stevenson counties. We went from serving a couple hundred people to a couple thousand. Since last March, we have purchased produce, meat, dairy, and eggs from local Illinois farmers and delivered that local food, 90,000 pounds of it, to our local underserved families. Our small local farmers count on these orders to survive. We've paid these local farmers fair market value of over $500,000 for their food. We have 20 socially disadvantaged independent farmers in our program. Our local community counts on this nutritious food. So we've heard from other people talking about nutrient-dense food. That is part of being food insecure, not just having enough food to eat, but having enough nutritious food. So we provide food 2,200 to 2,500 families each month. This program has been fantastic for the people of Illinois, and the people of Illinois will be harmed if it's stopped. Our hard-won local food system counts on this support in order to thrive. The LFPA Illinois Eats is a crucial program that has already been funded. Mr. Meyer, I believe you said earlier in this hearing and testimony that this would be best done 6 months from now. But a pause or stop in the funding does not work for farmers who need to plan and plant now. One of our local independent farmers with the expectation of 2025 funding has already signed contracts, purchased seeds, broke new ground, and even invested in a new tractor. This means something, right? So a pause in funding does not work for our families that need to eat now. They need to eat today. So Ed Bochniak, who's the executive director of Joe Davies Carroll County Housing Authorities, wrote a thank you to us for our service when, we weren't telling him we were coming today anymore. So, and he said the need for food in our community residents has increased within the past 12 months, and this news is devastating. We will continue to hope for good news in the near future, for no matter where we are in life, we need to support those that are in need. As I was driving the 4 hours down here, we got a message from Lucy at Pearl City, and she said they had never received dry goods, anything besides dry goods, before our program, and now that's stopped. So they're surrounded by farmland. They're surrounded by farmland, and they're eating processed food. It's just a horrible irony. So I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, so on the USDA LFPA page, it says the purpose of this program is to maintain and improve food and agricultural supply chain resiliency. So the suspension, I haven't heard a lot about this today, but the RFSI program also negatively affects JDLF. So we were hoping to receive the grant and have a refrigerated van so that we could go to take a mobile market to some of those food deserts and reach them. I'm trying to edit, so here we go, we're almost done. So that grant money has been frozen. So I'm just gonna end with this. Please, do everything in your power. I know you don't have all the power, right? But do everything in your power to urge USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins to unfreeze the LFPA and RFSI funding. Please support our local independent farmers, our local families, and our local food systems in Illinois. It matters. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Next up, we're going to hear from Jackie D. Bautista from Farmers Rising.
Good afternoon, and thank you to this committee and to Chairperson Sonia Harper for having us today. My name is Jackie De Bautista, and I come before you today as a farmer advocating for farmers. I'm a fourth-generation farmer operating a 200-acre family farm called Irish Grove Farms in Pecatonica up in Winnebago County. We raise 60 acres of soybeans or corn. We make hay on 90 acres, and we rotate approximately 75 head of Murray Grey cattle through 50 acres of grazing fields. I'm also the executive director of Farmers Rising, a small but impactful nonprofit organization in Northern Illinois, whose primary function above all else is to support, train, and promote new and beginning and regenerative farmers growing for and selling into the local food economy. I'm here today to focus on the devastating impact the federal government's policies are having on small, independent, new and beginning farmers who are incredibly important to replace an aging and retiring agricultural workforce, who produce the freshest, highest quality, healthy and delicious food you will ever eat, and who aren't protected by traditional farm supports, nor beneficiaries to systems of production with a supportive cast of scale-appropriate supply chain infrastructure. Farmers Rising is a lead agency for the Illinois Eats program in Northern Illinois. Over the past year, we have purchased more than $675,000 worth of fresh, locally grown food from 18 small farmers, with 14 farmers participating regularly in the program. We chose to implement this program because we have been working with new and beginning farmers for 25 years, and we recognize that the lack of scale-appropriate investment for local food producers is the #1 barrier to our collective ability to grow the local food economy and, more importantly, sustainably feed our own communities. The farmers with whom we work are small-scale growers who struggle to access and sell into wholesale market chains. This program was teaching them exactly how to do that. Within only one short year of growing and producing for a wholesale design system while receiving market prices, the incredible impact of this program is clear. Our farmers have built new high tunnels, they've purchased and installed critical cold storage, they've hired additional staff, they've expanded acreage and production, and they acquired necessary implements enabling them to scale up production. The Trump administration has pulled funding from this program and many other programs of similar importance, and then has the audacity to tell us to have fun while adjusting to agricultural tariffs. We were told to simply shift to selling food here in the United States. The ridiculousness of this statement is that shifting an entire food industry production system from row crops to local food requires a transition period, which includes investment in farms and in middle supply chain infrastructure and in skilled labor. The irony in that statement is that this work was already happening and was finally being supported and incentivized by our federal government. So I'm here to ask you today, as members of the Illinois General Assembly, one question, which is, what can you do? Respectfully, Farmers Rising and organizations like ours, and especially the farmers that we serve, do not have the luxury of waiting 6 months for things to shake out. We need you to act, to use your voices and your influence to advocate for us, to consider emergency funding supports, to consider implementing state LFPA programs similar to how other states have implemented this program. In closing, please do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to hear from Skylar Larimore.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair Harper.
Hey, she's online.
Hi, all. Thank you so much, Madam Chair Harper, Vice Chair Gill, Republican spokesperson Meyer, and the members of the Illinois House Agriculture Committee for your time and the opportunity to testify before you today. The Greater Chicago Food Depository is the Cook County Area Food Bank, part of the Feeding America National Network of Food Banks. We work with a network of over 850 partners across Cook County to ensure that neighbors have the food they need to thrive. Our mission is to end hunger, and we believe that food is a basic human right. Since 2023, our organization has participated in the Illinois Eats program, which was funded by the USDA LFPA program. The LFPA funding allowed us and other hunger relief organizations across the state to purchase more food directly from small local farmers for the benefit of our neighbors experiencing food insecurity. Through Illinois Eats, we have made over $500,000 in food purchases from 6 farms, buying over 120,000 pounds of Illinois-grown food. This fresh produce went out to people experiencing food insecurity, served by 46 pantry partners across Cook County. When we got notice that the federal government discontinued funding this month, we had to cancel over $390,000 in planned orders from 9 farms. While LFPA represented a small portion of the food depository's overall food supply for the neighbors we serve, this program enabled us to form transformative partnerships with our local growing community and strengthen Illinois' food system. LFPA allowed us to invest in small, local, and socially disadvantaged farms like Urban Farm Solutions in Chicago Heights or Eat in Place and Urban Growers Collective on Chicago's South Side. This program was beneficial for local farmers, food banks, neighborhood pantries, and the people we serve. Discontinuing it means many of our grower partners need to significantly cut back on staff, reduce working hours, or find alternate market pathways for tens of thousands of pounds of seeds already in the ground. The Food Depository remains committed to supporting and purchasing food from small local farms and ensuring that all of our neighbors have the food they need to thrive. We have contacted our growers to explore future opportunities to purchase their products, but we can't continue to purchase at LFPA prices. Beyond LFPA, I want to quickly elevate one other area of grave concern that will impact food banks, the neighbors we serve, farmers, and the broader food system: the proposed cuts to SNAP benefits. Historically, the Farm Bill has been a package with strong bipartisan support. Nutrition programs like SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, that are critical to the emergency food system and are a lifeline to millions of families, are authorized in the Farm Bill. This year, we are seeing major cuts to SNAP being proposed during the budget reconciliation process rather than negotiated as part of the Farm Bill. The U.S. House of Representatives budget resolution passed late February requires the House Agriculture Committee to slash $230 billion of spending across its programs over 10 years. The cuts are expected to come largely or entirely from SNAP. As the nation's largest nutrition assistance program, this would be disastrous for the more than 1 million families in Illinois who depend on the program to afford groceries. Reducing SNAP benefits will plunge even more households into food insecurity, causing demand on food banks and pantries to multiply as families struggle to afford their basic needs. For every 1 meal provided by food banks and local food pantries nationwide, SNAP provides 9. Charitable food organizations don't have the funding or capacity to meet the massive surge in need that will result from cuts to SNAP. Lastly, decreasing SNAP will have devastating impacts to our local economy and food system. Every $1 invested in SNAP benefits creates $1.5 in economic benefits for retailers, food producers, and farmers alike. Federal cuts to programs like LFPA and those proposed for SNAP will weaken our food system and exacerbate the hunger crisis in our community. Food insecurity is already unacceptably high in every county across Illinois. More than 1.2 million Illinoisans are currently facing hunger, and 30% are children. At a time of such overwhelming need, cuts to the federal safety net would be cataclysmic. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to hear from Kelly Daly.
Good afternoon, and thank you to the committee members and the chair for hanging in there this afternoon. I am Kelly Daly, President and CEO of the Eastern Illinois Food Bank, a sister food bank of the Greater Chicago Food Depository, who you just heard from. I won't repeat a lot of what she said, and I'll get right to it. We serve 18 counties in East Central Illinois, and what I want to bring to you today is the voice of the neighbors. We have used this program to bring high-protein items to rural and underserved communities through chicken and beef and pork. That's items that we're not normally able to send into these communities due to their high prices. We met Jackie at a food mobile distribution in Milford. She told us how much the resource meant to her. She said, "It is very helpful. My husband passed away and I'm living off very little Social Security. The way it's looking now, I'm close to losing my lights, my gas, my water. This assistance has really helped. And the hamburger we got a month or two ago was so delicious." When we explained that the program that provided the beef, she was thrilled to learn that local farmers were being supported while she was able to eat better quality food. We heard Jackie's feelings echoed from countless neighbors. Prices make it so hard to eat healthy meals. This beef is a huge help and tastes delicious, shared Stephanie at a food mobile stop in Vermilion County. In Woodford County, William told us that he drove long distances to get protein from the food mobile distribution since grocery prices made him cut back what he can buy. He said to us, "The food mobile is helping me tremendously because I'm a senior and I live out in a rural area. I love the quality of the food." Our neighbors have consistently shared that grocery price increases on protein were hurting their families the most. As we continue to meet historic need for food assistance, our priority remains providing nutritious groceries to the communities we serve. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for the members of the panel? All right, I'm going to ask that there are two people we were supposed to hear from on the last panel. Those are our final two speakers. I want to thank everyone for hanging in there. I'd like to call up Mr. John Bartman and Mr. Matt Klein. And I would like to say thank you so much, Mr. Bartman, for being here. I saw your story in the Farm Aid article, and I was just saying to myself, it would be wonderful if he could come and speak, and here you are. So thank you so much, and thank you for your patience. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Chairwoman Harper. I appreciate that very much. And to all the farmers on the panel, thank you for giving up your time and being a public servant. Farming and being a public servant take up a lot of time, and thank you. We need you as a voice in this room and in Springfield. My name is John Bartman. I am a proud fifth-generation farmer whose family pioneered their land in 1846. I reside in Marengo, which is located in the 68th Representative District and the 11th Congressional District. I run a 900-acre grain and vegetable operation. In the summer, we run the oldest continuous roadside stand in McHenry County, where we sell the majority of our produce. I am also a former director of the McHenry County Farm Bureau, and I'm a current director of the Marengo Food Pantry, where we currently serve over 1,200 people, which is 20% of Marengo's population. I have many concerns with the transition of the USDA administration, which is causing shockwaves, which is being felt by farmers. That being said, the most pressing issue to me and the 200 farmers who sent me is the Inflation Reduction Act payment freeze. The IRA had $20 billion, which the USDA NRCS has been preaching since its inception during the Dust Bowl for three very simple practices. They include using no-till, cover crops, and nutrient management. Those practices are terrific for the environment because farmers use less fuel, they consume less imported fertilizer, plus living plants breathe CO2 and put carbon back into the soil via their roots. This whole process mitigates climate change. The one program I participated in was the Climate Smart Commodities Program. It was designed as a public-private partnership where grain buyers would pay farmers to use NRCS practices. In return, the farmer sells the grain direct to the same buyer. The buyer would then sell the grain as climate smart. Uncle Sam would then reimburse the private grain buyer for paying the farmer for the practices and the farmers have a new market for the grain, a new private industry, which is what we all want. In my case, the buyer was the DeLong Company. They're based in Clinton, Wisconsin. They are now one of the largest grain elevators in northern Illinois. I was paid $90 an acre for all three practices, including the $5 an acre bonus I made because I make less than $300,000 a year. The program was so successful that over 670,000 acres were enrolled with just DeLong alone. To put that with just 200 growers. To put that in perspective, the Cook County Forest Preserve is only 70,000 acres, and the Shawnee National Forest is nearly 300,000 acres. There are also other companies besides DeLong who qualified, including ADM, the PepsiCo, American Soybean Association, and many more. Thousands of farmers participated. Another bonus was my grain qualified for the 45Z biofuel tax credit. The credit enabled ethanol plants to pay farmers a premium for being as close to carbon neutral as possible. I figured my corn was going to be worth at least $1 premium, which is a godsend in this economy. Needless to say, my banker was very happy with my proposed balance sheet for 2024, and I was approved for my operating loan. He even said, and I quote, "The federal government is backing this. This is a great program." My harvest in 2024 was very good, but the prices were terrible, and we were really counting on the payment from the DeLong Company. On January 20th, unfortunately, the president signed an executive order which put a hold on all IRA payments. And then on February 26th, the DeLong Company said they were suspending the program indefinitely. In the meantime, I haven't paid off my operating loan. I'm working with John Deere Financial on paying down my input costs, but now I'm paying interest. My spring rent is even due, and I haven't been able to lock in my inputs for this coming year. This is extremely embarrassing. I took the time to meet with my banker to do things and do it the right way. And here I am just trying to get by. I've had some naysayers say, "John, well, you shouldn't have gotten involved in the government program." And I said, well, if I were an HVAC repairman and I fixed the high school furnace, I should still be paid even if a new school board gets elected. I planted the covers, I sequestered the carbon, I did my job, I need my contract to be fulfilled. Thank you so very much for this opportunity. I do think there are a couple of things that the state of Illinois can do in the meantime. Number one is I would ask just a simple resolution that the USDA pay the contracts that are due to us. Number two, if it doesn't happen, ask the Illinois Finance Authority and the State Treasurer's Office to issue bridge loans to farmers who have been impacted by these freezes. The money is there, let's use it for a good purpose. And finally, if nothing happens, I would ask that the Attorney General, Raul, come and write a letter, and if necessary, file a motion in court that we get paid. And I don't want that to happen. Nobody wants that to happen. But we have to do something. As I said, I drove from Marengo. I came all the way down here. There is a lot of corn left outside in those grain elevators right now that's sitting outside. Basis is dropping. I am very, very concerned about what's going to happen this year. And so are the farmers and the 200 farmers that sent me down here. We would just like to be paid and move forward. So thank you so very, very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Bartman. We appreciate your testimony and for driving down here today. Last but definitely not least, we are going to hear from Mr. Matt Klein, who is joining us virtually.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairperson Harper and all committee members. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I will keep this very short because I realize it's late in the day. Again, my name is Matt Klein. I'm the owner of Klein's Quality Produce in Northern Illinois. We raise a wide variety of fresh vegetables, market them mainly through our retail stores in Elgin. I farm to make a living, raise my family, provide fresh vegetables to my local community. Our business is in the 70th House District and 35th Senate District. So we were part of the Illinois Eats program. I just kind of want to explain how it benefited the local food system and our farm. I think I saw the greatest impact when talking to the directly from pantry volunteers that patrons were just so overwhelmingly grateful to see fresh produce at the pantries rather than getting leftovers and nearly spoiled items that usually are donated. So everyone needs healthy food, and the fresh produce is the way to get this. But the bottom line, that more people ate fresh vegetables because of Illinois Eats. And our farm, we were able to handle a little extra volume. We hired some more help, purchased additional seed, produce boxes and equipment. So it helped the economy in that respect. And some of the smaller farms, I think maybe even help their local economies even more, because a lot of smaller startup farmers just purchasing inputs and other things in the community. So I'm going to urge USDA to continue LFPA program beyond 2025. And just real quickly on regards to the RFSI grant program, we did apply for equipment only for upgrade our refrigerated transportation. And one of the reasons for that is that with the food safety laws, it's becoming more important that we keep produce at cold temperatures, and especially with delivering to local schools and markets. Wholesale buyers now, they take temperatures on your produce. So that is and that would have been used for, several farmers would have shared that if that does come about. So I guess that's what I wanted to say, and I appreciate everyone's time. And I will ask the USDA to unfreeze the RFSI. And again, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so very much. Well, we have finally come to the end of our subject matter hearing. But before I end, are there any final questions from members? Good. Thank you so much for sticking it out with me, guys. I appreciate it. And again, thanks to all of the panel speakers. We got a lot of information today, and we really got to see what these impacts are looking like here in the state of Illinois. And I want to encourage folks and encourage my colleagues that we should be employing Congress to definitely pass the Farm Bill this year and not stiff our farmers here in the state and not have even more devastating impact on our food access. And with that, we will recess to the call of the chair. Have a good day, everybody.